could do a mic check probably. What's happening, everybody? In June, I've come on today to do a review of the U.S. criminal justice system because we're seeing shit like this. Let me just pull up the image here. Where's my image? There we go. We're seeing shit like this, and I know people are getting confused. They're like, do we have a criminal justice system? Does it work? What the hell is going on? I mean, here's some more. Let's see. This is something else you see probably on a regular basis in the news. And you're like, how the hell? Like, what the fuck are these kids doing out there taking over the streets and shit? What is going on with the judiciary? And so that's what I'm gonna tell you today. So the good news is the United States has a robust and very effective, maybe too effective, although considering current events, maybe not, criminal justice system. It is robust. We incarcerate. You think Russia incarcerates a lot of people? We incarcerate 3 times as many people as Russia per capita. You think China incarcerates a lot of people? We incarcerate 5 times as many people as China, as communist China. Now, they probably kill a lot of people also, probably more than we do. So they're not around for being held in custody. But if these numbers are anything close to reality, and they are, then the United States is not the land of the free anymore. Okay, we're the land of the incarcerated. We incarcerate like 1% of our population, which is just huge. I mean, again, it's something like 2 or 3 times Germany as well. I mean, go down the country's list and see who we put people in jail. All right, that's what we do. Now, you're not seeing it. I realize that. You're not seeing it out there. What you're seeing is the exceptions. Because look, that's what gets the news, right? And I can tell you, all right, look, everything I'm going to tell you right now is based mostly out of Florida because that's where my experience comes from. But the nation is largely the same. That is to say, the states control criminal law, and most of the states have a very similar system, which I'm going to describe to you now. The federal system also has a little bit of law enforcement for major crimes and such. It's a little out of control, but it is what it is. The state system, though, listen, the federal system is super harsh, super harsh. You get charged with federal crimes, you're going to prison, and for decades, for long periods of time, years and shit. They don't fuck around in the feds, at least around here, everything that I've seen. Now, Florida also does not fuck around. We have an 80% rule, which means whatever sentence you get, you're going to do 80% of it. We have, okay, generally speaking, this is how the courts operate. Every court, every state has, or most every state, there's about 15 who don't, that most every, and they have enhancers as well, but most every state has a point system. What happens is every time you get charged with a felony, misdemeanors don't count on your points, or at least not for much. But the felonies, you get charged, you get sentenced, and then those points go on your permanent record. So if you come back in front of the judge again for a different crime, you've got points already on your record, which is going to count towards your sentencing. And they add up quickly. Let me just tell you, in Florida, you can get a second-degree felony, and that basically maxes you out on your point score. That is to say, that scores you prison already. When that second-degree felony goes into your past, you get any other felony after that, you're going to prison. Now, when I say you're going to prison and this point score, the point score is a recommendation to the judges. But it's a legal recommendation, and for the judges to deviate from that recommendation, they have to provide reasons. And not only just reasons, but they have to provide evidence for the reasons. So it's difficult for the judges to deviate. They got to have something. You can't just say, I don't think this guy should do that much time. You can't just do that. And, if you try to do that, the other side, the state will appeal. The state, I've seen the state appeal judges' sentences and have them overturned because the sentences were too lenient. That happens. So you can't just let people off in Florida. You pretty much have to go by the guidelines, and they're quite strict. Now, the judges themselves are all judges. By the time you get to the felony criminal system, they're circuit judges, which in our system is an intermediate level judge. When you hear words like district and circuit, county, those things are superior. Those things all change state to state. But in our courts, you're not going to get sentenced for a felony crime by a magistrate. Now, in our courts, our magistrates are judges as well. They're lawyers, and they're basically on their way to becoming judges. And I mean, they're practicing for the judgeship. And if you get a ruling by a magistrate, you can appeal it to the regular judge. So it's not like the magistrate is going to hold you to anything that the regular judge is not going to. It's just they have oversight. So we don't have this stuff like, I don't know where, I saw some reports that there are magistrates in, I think, Chicago that don't even have law degrees. I mean, I don't know how. The DEI thing really screwed things up. I mean, it just did. But we've gotten rid of that now, and we should get back to some better judging. Now, I'm just going to tell you straight up, from my experience, the ratio of good judges to bad judges is about 7-1. It's good. That is to say, there's 7 good judges who follow the law and do everything right for every judge that gets in there and is like a rogue judge. But there's a rogue judge in every jurisdiction. I've practiced in jurisdictions all over the state, and everybody knows who the rogue judge is. Everybody knows if you're going in front of that judge, you're going to get that judge's view of things. But hey, that's why we elect judges, is so that they can have their disparate views. And we have a little bit of that going on. Usually the rogue judges get reined in by the other judges over a couple of years. That is, usually the rogue judge is a new judge who comes in and they're like, I'm going to shake everything up here. I'm going to let these guys go and and rule this way and that way. And they go in there and they start ruling shit left and right. And then they get appealed and they get overturned on appeal. And then they get the talking to, because judges have conferences. And they bring each other together and they're like, look, man, you're giving us a bunch of extra fucking work to do, right? You make these shitty rulings, and then the appeals judges have to go in and clean everything up according to the law, because that's the law. So there is a system of checks and balances even for the judges. And the judges are subject to all the laws. I mean, obviously they can't break the law. Obviously they have to follow the law in terms of their bar association. They can't break any laws that would jeopardize their law license. And also they're subject to other oversight. There's a chief judge who puts people in their places, and not only literally but figuratively. And what they do is they assign the judges their various dockets. And if you're a shitty judge, you're going to get a shitty docket, and they're going to tell you about it. They're going to tell you why. And so, over time, you play ball. You get in with the judges. There's only a few thousand judges in the state of Florida, right? I mean, it's not that many. They all know each other. So you better be in or you're going to be out, basically. And like I said, it takes a few years usually for the judges to come around and stop doing crazy shit. Some of them keep doing it. Some of them do it their entire career. We've all seen it. Every lawyer is, like I said, every lawyer knows who the crazy judge in the docket, in the jurisdiction is. And you either try not to get him or you try to get him if you think they're going to help you. But it's not. Those people are the exceptions. Those are not the rules. And I have seen, man, I can tell you stories. I mean, you get on probation in the state of Florida and you violate that probation for anything. I mean, anything. You're going to sit in jail. In Ocala, literally, they'll give you no bond. They'll give you no bond in Ocala on your felony probation, which means you sit there. You can't bail out for any amount of money. And, you hear about these things. You hear about murderers bailing out. Oh, and people getting no bail for for violent crimes, and it's just crazy, and it's not the norm. I can tell you that the way that bond works is actually quite good. Here's the two things that people worry about, the judges have to be concerned about in the bond hearing. One, danger to the community. Number one, danger to the community. Is there any possibility that this person who you're thinking about letting out on bond would reoffend or hurt anyone in the community? If the answer to that is yes, you don't give them a bond. Not in Florida anyway. I don't know what you guys in California or New York are doing. And honestly, as I was saying in my other video, they need to send in the feds, because there's probably people on the take at the lower levels, because this kind of shit shouldn't happen at the levels that it does. But you've got man, people getting bond for violent felonies. I mean, what? Shit. It's hard to get a bond. It's hard to get a bond for freaking misdemeanors in this state. I mean, they'll give him out. Here's the way it works. Every charge has, there's a list. There's something called a bond schedule. And so every charge has like a normal amount that would be associated with that charge, right? Misdemeanors is a few $1,000s. Felonies, maybe 10, 20. If you get murder, $50,000 or more. Sometimes you'll see $1 million bond. That's off the schedule. Okay. The judges can deviate from the schedule as well. And they can give no bond, which is not on the schedule, or they can give a super high bond. Now, of course, we have the Constitutional Amendment, which says that you're entitled to a bond, but you're not. I hate to tell you this, but you're not, especially if you've already done something else. But basically, if they decide that you're a danger to the community in any way, then you're not getting a bond. And the other qualification for you getting a bond, there's two, and the second one is that you're going to return to court. And again, I mean, you can easily see if somebody has a FTA, a failure to appear on their record, then they're not getting a bond because they're not coming back, or at least there's an indication that they might not come back. And so you're sitting in there. And, the whole bond thing came about as an issue because what we were doing is we had kind of a two-tier justice system whereby if you can afford the bond, you can go sit at your home and drink whatever, your martinis, and enjoy yourself waiting for your trial. But if you can't afford the bond, then you sit in jail and you accept the punishment before you're even proven guilty. And for a lot of people, the way that works out is they end up pleading guilty to the charge, because you can't plead innocent to the charge and get sentenced to jail in the state of Florida. That's illegal. So you have to plead guilty, and then you get out. And so what happens is, for a lot of people, especially the poor people, what happens is they get arrested, and then they go to jail, and they're sitting in jail. And then I go in there and I'm like your attorney and everything, and I'm like, hey. And they're like, what about my bond? And I'm like, yeah, you didn't get one because they think you're going to reoffend, or you failed to show up last time or something. And so you just have to sit there. Or the state has made you an offer whereby you plead guilty to the crime, you get convicted, and you get out. And what do you think most people do? They plead guilty and they get out. So some of these past record things are convenience pleas, right? And that's one of the things that leads to these people getting out with big bad past records, because maybe they didn't have a big bad past record. Maybe half of those charges they just pled out to get out of jail, and they could have beat the charge at a trial, but you never even get to that point because there's the offer. And so that clouds things a little bit, and that's one of the reasons why you don't want to have a situation where people are pleading out to get out of jail just because they can't afford a bail. And the solution to that is what we need to do is adjust the bail system a little bit more so that the judges try to recognize the difference between crimes with harm and crimes without harm. And they need to let people out that are not going to harm anybody, and they need to keep people in who are. And that's really that's the bright line that needs to be drawn in this whole thing. It's the real definition between crime and not crime. Is there harm to some other citizen? And we have so many crimes on our books that are like possession of a firearm, possession of drugs, possession of shit, violation of a zoning or a licensing law. Like, you didn't hurt anybody. You didn't try to hurt anybody, and nobody got hurt. And yet you go to jail. You get a bond. All that shit has to happen because we've got this over incarceration situation right now. And as the pendulum starts to move back, it's unfortunately it's releasing guys like this motherfucker who killed the Ukrainian. And look, that guy was insane. Okay, I don't know if you listened to his little rant, but he basically said they put some material in my body, and whoever wanted that girl dead manipulated the material in my body, and that girl got killed. That's what happened. That's what he said. Now, look, I don't know if that's his attempt to pretend to be insane or if he's actually insane, but it doesn't matter. In the state of Florida, you don't get off if you're considered insane. That you don't get out. They're not like, oh, well, he's insane. Of course he kills people. That's not what happens. What they do is they put you in a prison for the criminally insane. And you're in there with all the other criminally insane people. And we have them. I mean, God, they are nasty. I mean, you think a regular prison. I've been in every prison facility in the state. You think a regular prison is nasty. Go into freaking one of those criminally insane ones, man. Those people are fucking crazy. I mean, these are people who just slice people up just be like because they were there and shit. And so, that's that guy needs to go to one of those places. All right. And or they'll kill him. I mean, either way. I mean, I'm against the death penalty because Elon could invent a fucking neurochip next week that could allow the people to live in society normally. And if you kill the people, then there's no possibility of any recovery, obviously. And it's just too harsh. It's too final, and it doesn't allow for the clear and obvious, normal, regular mistakes of the system. And let me tell you something. Our system sucks. It sucks because nobody cares about the prisoners. Nobody gives a fuck about the prison. Look, you're too busy worrying about your own life, right? You got to get your own shit together. Maybe you're worried about some charity case here or there, like in your family or something. But you don't have time to worry about just some crazy motherfucker who killed some other fucker. Like, probably both criminals, but and so they're rotting in jail. Like, what do you care, really? Like, how can you help that in any way? So nobody gives a shit except for the people who are marginally involved, like me. I've spent a year in jail just visiting my clients, so I know what jail is like, for the most part. But man, it's harsh. And we put people away for anything in this country. So you don't have to worry that particular situation is out of control, because it's not. It's in control. There's just leaks. And there's going to be, because until we shore up the system holistically, you get bad cracks. And the bad cracks are you get terrible people who get let out and go do horrible things, and also you get people who are innocent who get sentenced to long sentences, and or didn't even hurt anybody, and they're in prison for decades and shit. Those are called cracks. It means the system isn't perfect, but it's still not horrible. I mean, you got lots of rights in our country, and it's amazing. I spent a lot of time explaining the first half hour of every consultation about how you still have rights in the United States. And you do. You have all kinds of crazy rights. It's amazing what they allow us to do in terms of calling witnesses, compelling witnesses, and doing all the things to defend people. And it's, in some ways, it's getting more robust. It changes on the edges. In some ways, it's getting worse. And situations like this, I feel like, you got people calling for punishment for judges for not punishing the criminals enough. And how do you know if you're a judge? I mean, you can't punish the judge. I'm just going to say it's untenable to create a situation where the criminals can punish the judge that just punished them by merely reoffending. Like, I can make that judge lose his job if I just go out and commit another crime. Like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do that shit. I mean, come on. So you can't have the judges that vulnerable. They're subject to a lot of oversight, but you can't have them criminally liable. I saw some people were like, put them in jail. But I mean, most people are like, oh, fine them or something. You can't, because it would be too easy. The criminals are too vindictive and they have nothing to lose. So they would fucking go after the judges all the time. And then you have other criminals, like the mastermind criminals would set people up to get arrested, get sentenced, and then pay them to go reoffend to get the judges in trouble. I mean, it would be an impossible job to be a judge if you could be held accountable, and nobody else is held accountable. It'd be like if you were working at a company and they were like, look, you're going to make this deal with this other company, but if it doesn't go right, we're going to charge you personally as the employee, right, some money because, you didn't make a good deal for the company. No, you don't do that. That's not what it is. Everybody's insulated in their job, and the judges have to be insulated as well. You just can't have a system where they're going to get in trouble for the sentencing. It just would never work. Nobody would be a judge, or all the judges you would get would give out life sentences for everything. I mean, shit. If I know that if this guy reoffends, hey, what'd you do? Speeding ticket? Life sentence. I'm sorry, man. I can't take the chance. You're a criminal. Let's say you did something half bad. You haven't even evolved into your full, complete criminality yet. And I'm gonna let you go. No, you're getting life. You're getting life. You're getting life. Everybody gets life if it were that. You just can't have that. So, look, there are more deterrents that we can do. One of them is happening right now, which is the liberation of the Second Amendment. People are starting to realize, hey, you know what? It would help out a lot if some of the other people around here were carrying guns. And I know some of you guys are still brainwashed into thinking that there's like this two-tier system. Like the cops are fine with guns and they're responsible and trained and they're moral and they do everything right with their guns. But everybody else, like your neighbor and those people, man, you can't give them a gun. They'll shoot their kid. They'll shoot their own kid. I mean, that's what the narrative is. And it's crazy. You have to trust people with danger. We trust people. There's poison right underneath your sink. Everybody's got it. Everybody could commit suicide today if they wanted to with the poison. So if they use a gun, that doesn't make the guns bad. And half of gun deaths are suicides in this country. And if they weren't suicide in that way, they'd find another way. Most of them would. So the gun situation is getting better. In fact, Florida just this week had a ruling in an appeals court which may cause the state to eventually overturn its ban on open carry. We had a guy, clever guy, and this is what he did. He literally put the camera up, put his gun in his holster, and went out with a sign and a copy of the Constitution that said Second Amendment rules or something, stood on the corner somewhere like Pensacola and just waited for the cops to come by and arrest him. And when they did, he pulled out his carry permit and said, yeah, they said, yeah, it's not open carry, but he said, look, I know I'm getting arrested. The whole point is I'm going to appeal this up to the Supreme Court. He's got it all the way through the appeals court at this point, and they've sided with him. So at this point, as of right now today, you can open carry in the state of Florida, at least according to the case law. Not the statutes, but the case law. So I'm not advising you to do that right now, but hopefully soon that would come into reality. And that kind of thing makes a difference. We need to get back to stuff like you have the Daniel Penny case. And, here's a guy who tried to be a good Samaritan and save people from the aggressive attacker. And fucking Alvin Bragg charges him with murder for trying to save people. When everybody can clearly see what the fuck is going on here. It's so political. And I hope that Penny's case against Bragg goes forward and he's able to successfully sue him for malicious prosecution, because That's the kind of bullshit that needs to stop. Citizen enforcement can happen on a few levels. We can get, for example, right now we're getting a lot of citizen enforcement in the area of firings. That is to say, people who are coming out against free speech in the Charlie Kirk situation. They're saying, well, he brought it on himself. He shouldn't have been out there talking hate speech. Hate speech will get you killed, because as soon as you hate somebody, they're going to hate you back. And then they're justified in killing you because speech is violence, right? That's how they've perverted the whole thing and twisted it around. And it's total bullshit. And anybody who supports that needs to be decried and basically said, no, that's not the case. And some of them are going to lose their jobs. I mean, not everybody. And some idiot, some stupid senator or congressman came out today and was like, we have to have permanent bans on people who say these negative things against Charlie. No. You totally lost the thread. You totally lost it. You don't have permanent bans on speech for anybody. Nobody. I don't care. Fucking Ted Bundy. I don't care if you're the worst criminal in the world. I want you to have free speech, even if it's in prison. Nobody should be able to shut you up if you want to say something, because there's nothing that you can do with words. Let me explain the difference between words and not words. Words that can harm and words that can't harm. Okay, because there are words that can harm, and here's what they are. They're not names. It's not motherfucker, shithead, muppet, whatever else names people are getting in trouble for calling you in the UK. Those are not the words that hurt people. The only words that hurt people are plans to do crimes. Okay? And you're even allowed in the United States to lay out an entire plan for a crime. Like, you can write a book about how to rob Fort Knox, and it's totally legal, unless and until you take some positive step to put that plan into action. That's where words become crime. Okay? That's the only time that words become crime, is when you're literally telling someone, go do this crime. Okay? If you tell someone, hey, go beat that person up, you are in conspiracy to beat that person up. Okay? You see how that works? Because it's a plan. It's a plan to commit a crime. Other than plans to commit crimes, no amount of words, no amount of bad words, no arrangement of letters, no number of times you say the N-word, nothing is going to hurt anybody, because it's a little vibration that your ear picks up. And then that's it. And you can totally ignore it. You can go like this, la, 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 la. You can cover your ears. You don't even have to listen. You don't have to pay attention. We teach our kids how to ignore bad words. It's what you learn before you become an adult. And everybody has to embrace this in our culture. It's super, super important that we allow words. It's critical. It's absolutely foundational. And so we got to get back to that. We got to get back to only enforcing crimes that have harmed people or could harm someone. Now, look, we talk about harm. Libertarians are always talking about, crime without harm and stuff. Attempt is harm. Attempt is harm. Okay. If you try to steal something and they catch you, you've tried to steal it. You tried to steal it, even though they got it back. Libertarians are, they got it back. It's not a crime. Nothing happened. No harm, no foul. No, there was harm. Trust me, it was harm. Conspiracy, the same way. You plot to do something. Oh, you didn't do it. You just plotted to do it. No. If you took steps before you got caught, that's conspiracy and that's a crime. Okay. Other than those two, we call those the inchoate crimes because there's not a lot of activity that is associated with them. But other than those two, words should be absolute. Words should be absolute. And the right to carry, open carry, should be absolute. I mean, unless you do something that removes your right to carry, which, that can happen, because you can get in trouble. we compromise your rights if you take actions that compromise other people's rights. So I mean, you could make the argument that you could shut up people and compromise their right to talk because they killed somebody or something. But I wouldn't go that far. I would just incarcerate them and protect everybody from them. That is to say. But all right, let me just look at my list and see. Got to get rid of gun-free zones. You want to stop crime? That'll go a long way. That'll go a long way. Gun-free zones are absolutely target zones. I mean, absolutely target zones. I think I pretty much covered everything here. If you have questions, let me know. Write a question. I'll answer it. You got a question specifically or generally, let me know. And I'll answer it. So anyway, I think that's it. I hope I've reassured you a little bit that we put people in jail in this country and we keep them there. Especially in Florida. I mean, some of you states, California, man, they let people out in California because of overcrowding. If you're a celebrity, if you're a celebrity in California, you get convicted, you get 6 months in jail. You're going to do like 30 days in the county. I mean, it's so lenient out there. And of course, they're the state that did you can steal up to $1,000 worth of shit. That's not really stealing. What? Insanity. I mean, that's a real leak in the criminal justice system. I mean, man, that's a huge gash, a hole. They got to plug that shit up. I think they did. I mean, they did reduce it at least. But, man, Gavin, what a tool that guy is, right? All right. Anyway, that's all I got.